$80 for a Mario Kart game. That was all it took to send the internet into a spiral of Reddit meltdowns, angry tweets, and even I had discussions with some of you in this channel about this. But this goes beyond just one game. The whole industry has reacted to this news. Xbox being one of them, announcing that some of their games will also be costing more, as well as rumors putting the newer GTA 6 at €100. So during all of this, I just wanted to take a step back, read some articles, gather some data, and try to answer one very important question. Is it justifiable that games are more expensive now? Or are they just taking the piss, mate? Was that a good British accent? I think it was pretty good, right? Or are they just taking the piss, mate? Yeah, no, never mind, that was horrible. I apologize to all British people. Let's just go back to the video. And let me start with one of the most common arguments that people use when it comes to justifying $80 in games. It is just one word, and the word is inflation. Over time, we all know that the value of money goes down as things become more expensive. A pound of bread in the US in 2003 was $1, and now it's almost $2. And a pound of bacon was $3, and now it is around $7. You get the idea. The argument here is that while many things have become more expensive over time, AAA games have always cost more or less the same, which is kind of not true. I'm going to use Call of Duty as an example because they've been releasing a game every single year and they are kind of like a standard in the industry. Okay, so the first game was released in 2003 and was being sold for $50. Call of Duty 2, which released 2 years later, was the first game that took a big swing by increasing its price to $60, making it the default for the industry from that moment on. In 2020, they increased the prices again to the current $70. And maybe this is where the confusion came, because 15 years is a long time. But in this case, it was not really Call of Duty's fault, but NBA 2K21 that took the jump shot and dunked us in the face by being the first one to do this. And it took just 5 years for the industry to start talking about, well, maybe $80 will be kind of normal for a lot of games. So games have been increasing in price over time, just maybe not at the same rate that many other things. But still, if I now calculate how much $50 is in 2003 in comparison to how much it is now, it would be, assuming that my maths are correct, $85. So we can definitely make the case that even if games now start costing $80, they're still going to be a little bit cheaper than they were in 2003 when they were costing $50. But this is not entirely correct, because the world of gaming has changed a huge amount in the last 15 years, and game sales are just not the only thing to consider. Back in the day, man, I sound really old when I say that. But yeah, back in the day, you would just go to your local store, you would buy a game, you would get home, play it, and that's it. It would be done. But now things are just a little bit more complex. Do you want to play the newest Call of Duty? Well, which version do you want? The standard one or the Vault Edition that is $30 more expensive? Oh, you just want to play the game and not buy useless stuff? Well, make sure that at least you consider this season's Battle Pass. The Black Cell Edition is only $30. If you don't want it, it's completely okay. But before you start playing, make sure that you visit the shop, just in case you need the newest Squid Game skin. And if you don't care about Squid Game, there's no problem. There is $800 worth of other overpriced crap that you can spend your money on. I think I'm making my point clear. The first Call of Duty sold 4.5 million copies, it was a big success and made lots of money. But Modern Warfare 2, which came out in 2022, made 800 million in revenue in just the first 3 days, and 1 billion in the first 10 days. That is a disgusting amount of money to make in such a short amount of time, and that is all thanks to microtransactions, which were not a thing in 2003, at least not as much. And this whole microtransaction-filled plague is not just a Call of Duty problem, it also happens in FIFA or FC Sports, NBA 2K, and many others, including single-player games like Assassin's Creed Shadows or Resident Evil 4 Remake. So if we are trying to justify that games now should be a bit more expensive, we should also consider that there is like this huge market of microtransactions, special editions, and other ways to get our money that have nothing to do with the original game. And that in many cases, they also use predatory techniques to get the most money out of children. But okay, it's also true that not every single game there is like NBA 2K, which every year looks more like a casino simulator than something related to basketball. There are also many games that are well made and have no microtransactions, so let's look into them. And let's pick Mario Kart World as the focus, since this is the game that started this whole debacle. It's a new game, looks great, has tons of awesome improvements, and no shenanigans when it comes to special editions or loot boxes. Awesome. Theoretically, given everything that I just said, I could agree to a price increase, but at the same time, it just feels greedy as fuck. And I say that because, among other reasons, look at what happened with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It was a port from the Wii U game with a bunch of already released DLC, and they sold it at full price on the Switch. Right now, 8 years later, it is still at 50 euros. So I don't think that it costs a lot of money to Nintendo to actually make the port of this game, and it still sold 64 million units, making it the 5th most sold game in history. There is literally no way that Nintendo didn't make several billions of profit just out of this single game. They could have easily spent 300 million developing Mario Kart World, sell it for 50 buckaroos, and still make billions of profit. I have no doubt about it. But apparently making as much money as they made before is not good enough for them, so they just raised the price. And this is not the only franchise that did extremely well for Nintendo in the last couple of years. There is a reason that their stock price went up 150% since 2020. So I find very difficult to justify this price increase, especially when it comes to Nintendo. It cannot be that they need more money because their games are not selling as much, since their Switch games have sold extremely well in comparison to any of their other consoles. They are also not spending hundreds of millions of dollars on every single game that they're making. I like Mario Party, Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion, but I don't think they are the most expensive games out there to create, and they still sold tens of millions of copies. I mean, it cannot be an economical reason because this generation has generated more profit for them than the previous 35 years combined. And it makes sense because let's not forget that Nintendo also makes money from the millions of people playing for a Switch Online subscription, and also the extra hardware that they sell, like controllers, cases, memory cards, and even amiibos. None of this stuff being particularly cheap for us. And for every game sold on the eShop, Nintendo takes around a 30% cut, a very common rate in the industry, but still an absolute moneymaker. So basically, if we apply Occam's razor, it's not because of some crazy reason that they need to do this, just because they want to have more money. Or better said, their investors want them to have more money. And look, let me be a little bit optimistic about it, but don't worry, I'm still going to end up being pessimistic at the end of it. I kind of agree with Nintendo's idea of variable pricing. You look at how much the game costs to make, how big it is, how ambitious it is, and then based on all of that, you decide on a price. In theory, that makes sense. So in this case, they decide that Mario Kart World should be $80. Okay. Great, but this only works if it's also done on the other direction. During the Switch's era, we've seen remakes of decades-old games that just take a few hours to finish, like Link's Awakening, for example, being sold at basically the same price as Breath of the Wild. That is very wild without any breath. That was not really a good one. We've also getting ports of really old games, like this 3D Mario All-Star Collection, which basically is 3 really old games with no major improvements being sold at full price. And by the way, this is the 3rd time that you can buy a Mario 64 on a Nintendo console. Great job, Nintendo. We have also seen other smaller party games that were not well received at all, still costing a full 50 euros. So in this generation, with the pricing, they haven't really been very fair. And when it comes to the Switch 2, we have only seen a very small amount, and it doesn't really look good. You have Welcome Tour, which looks more like a tech demo than an actual game, and it costs 10 euros. Not even welcomes are free anymore. But they've also made the blunt decision of making the Switch 2 edition of Breath of the Wild, an 8-year-old game, a whopping $70. And that doesn't include the DLC. That will be an extra $20. Thank you very much. So no, I don't think that Nintendo is going to be fair with pricing, because they've never been fair with pricing in their history, basically. Now, a lot of people also talk about, yeah, but what about quality? What about if the game deserves it? And I also want to touch this point, because I get it. If Mario Kart World is actually great and turns out to be the best game in the franchise, why wouldn't it be worth paying extra for it? And to explain my reasoning with this, I want to have a bit of a thought experiment. If we look at the best reviewed games of this year, we'll see titles like Claroscure Expedition 33, which cost 50 euros on Steam, Split Fiction, which is also 50, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, a super ambitious and huge RPG where you can spend hundreds of hours in it, it costs 60 euros, Blueprints is 30, Keep Driving is 18. It is really difficult to justify that any title is worth the same as Expedition 33 and Blueprints combined, which are 2 of the highest regarded games of the year. And for some people that might be the case, and that's completely fine, but for a lot of people they will have to choose, and not everyone can spend $400 a year in just 5 games. This also makes me wonder, if a studio with 250 employees are able to make Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, release it at $60 and become profitable in the first day, why do any other companies are struggling doing the same thing? Either these guys are down for not charging more for it, Nintendo cannot handle their gaming budgets correctly, because KCD2 had a budget of 41 million, or Nintendo is just greedy. I don't think there are many more options. Hi, it's me again. Long time no see. Something has happened in the last couple of days that I think I need to mention in this video. So someone asked Randy Pitchford, which is the guy behind Borderlands, if Borderlands 4 was going to cost $80. He said that the pricing wasn't really up to him, but that, and I quote, if you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. I have no idea why he said that. It kind of seems that he just wants people to pirate his game for some reason. But either way, yeah, it seems that maybe $80 are gonna happen to just more than a couple of games. I just wanted to add that. Let's go back to the video. At the same time, we all have our biases, and I definitely know mine. If the next 3D Mario costs $80, I will probably pay for it, because that's one of the main reasons that I actually got a Switch 2 in the first place. If Remedy, which also had some economical struggles, decides to make Alan Wake 3 an extra premium price, I will probably buy it and support them, so they can keep making the most good-looking, strange, and ambitious single-player games I've ever played. But then when it comes to games from other companies, I will definitely think twice about buying them. In conclusion, this is kind of a tricky situation. I understand that the gaming industry is in a tough spot right now, and if raising prices is a way that we can keep our favorite independent studios alive without them having to rely on gacha mechanics or microtransactions, I am okay with paying that price. At the end of the day, Sven Finke's sword is not going to sharp itself, am I right? This guy is the CEO of Larian Studios, the people behind Baldur's Gate 3, in case you didn't understand who he was. But it just feels greedy that this push for a higher price didn't come from a smaller studio that invests everything that they have to create the next project, and they are always one misstep away from having to close down. In that situation, I completely understand that they would want to earn more money per game. But no, the price hikes always started from huge corporations. In this case, from basically one of the healthiest and richest organizations that we have in our industry. A company that is worth more than $92 billion, which just released one of the most successful consoles of all time. But this situation might change if the Switch 2 doesn't sell very well. My prediction is that it's going to sell pretty well, but not as much as the Switch. Why, you ask? That is an excellent question. I actually made a video talking all about it, and I will leave it here or here. See you there.